$26,552. That is a number that you should highly consider. But I don't want you to start panicking right now with that amount if it's way beyond your budget. Because some of the items I'm going to discuss, you don't have to include this in your startup cost if you have these items ready, or maybe if you don't have an office or you don't even want one, then there's a lot of expenses in here that you're not going to have to include. So 26,000, that is a number that you have some sort of cushion for. And don't worry, I'm going to justify all the numbers. I'm going to let you know what each amount represents. So to begin with, you can actually start off with $7,000, maybe $7,100 if it's just you and you're the only employee of your own company. You can get away with $7,000 really easy, especially if you don't have an office. But let's just say you have an office, you have one unarmed private security officer, you have that one account, and this officer works 160 hours in the month, then 26,552 is going to represent a fairly good number if you want to have that cushion just in case something happens. Business license and fees, you don't have a lot of cushion with that. You might operate in a city where you're required to have a business license, or even a county area. For security companies, some cities and other jurisdictions actually charge you a lot more if you have a private security company. It just varies. Next is the PPO license fees. And by the way, if I put an asterisk next to the item, that means that that item is, for the most part, not negotiable. You have a PPO license fees, a total of $1,320. $1,320, that's not negotiable. You're going to have to pay those fees. That's how much it costs to start up a company with the Bureau of Security Investigative Services. You have an $80 LifeScan fee. That is somewhat negotiable, but that amount doesn't leave a lot of cushion room. $4,000 for commercial insurance policy. You can play around with the numbers a little bit depending on where you go, but you're going to see about $3,000 up to $4,000 for unarmed security. You want armed security, it's going to cost a lot more. Also, it just depends on where your project is going to be. If you perhaps work at a bank or maybe a marijuana dispensary where the liability is going to be a lot greater for the insurance company, well, they're going to charge you a premium. And some insurance companies, they're going to want the $4,000 or $3,000 up front. Next, we have a workers' comp policy. As long as you have one employee, you're going to need to have a workers' compensation policy. If you don't, it's a misdemeanor, and it is punishable by imprisonment in a county jail and a large fine. I think the fine starts off at about $10,000. More or less, the cost for that is $3,432. Let's just say you pay your employee $16 an hour. That's about $1 over the minimum wage that's expected in a couple of years from 2020. Now, the next one is patches. I put $350. You can't just order one patch in most companies. They want you to order a minimum, and the minimum varies. Sometimes it's 50, sometimes it's 100. So $350 should cover it. The next item is badges. Okay, let's just say you want the shield, metal plated. Might cost about $120, $130 per badge. Okay, you can get a cloth patch. It will be a little bit more cheaper. If you want a custom one, again, it's going to cost about $350, almost the same amount, because they're going to have to develop a template for that. You can't just go in there and have one design and expect to just pay $3 for that. They're gonna want you're gonna want to have a custom one made so that you can meet the specifications of the Bureau of Security Investigative Services. Next one is a website. A lot of people are going to want to know what your website is. If you don't have one, it looks more unprofessional. It's not a requirement though, but it's just something that's great to have, and I tack that on to the $26,000 cost. Next one is business cards. Some people might ask for a business card. Okay, more or less, I figure about $200, depending on how many cards that you want printed. Next one is a computer. If you have a laptop already, take that off the expenses. But you're going to want to have your own computer that's dedicated just to work. Try not to put your personal stuff on there. Just have one that is strictly work-related stuff. Okay. Next one is a printer. Okay. You want to have a quality printer. You're going to have to be printing out W-2 forms, I-9 forms, and any other pertinent form for your employees, and even applications. You want to have a quality printer. If you have one already, then you don't have to get another one. But that's just something else to consider in this cost. Down payment for rent. I put $3,000. You might have to, depending on where you want to have an office, you might have to put down $3,000 of rent money. Okay, if you work at home office, you obviously don't have to put anything down. Next is the and by the way, not every place is $3,000, but this is maybe on the higher end depending on where your office is going to be. Lost wages, I put $2,860 for lost wages. Now, in my experience, it's common for a client to pay late. Some clients will say, hey, you know what, sorry, can't pay you this week because my other client or my other vendor didn't pay me, so I can't pay you. That's some of the nonsense that you're going to have to be putting up with, that you might have to be putting up with as a private security company owner. You have to be prepared for this. If your security officer works 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and you still haven't got paid, you are obligated under state law and federal law to pay your employee. Okay, so this amount of $2,860 provides that cushion while you wait for that payment. Again, if you get stuck with no payment, you're going to be out of luck paying your employee. There's a Coachella Fest in the Riverside County area, and every year I hear private security officers complain that they haven't got paid. Well, the most common excuse is, well, sorry, employee, but I can't pay you right now because my client hasn't paid me yet. Again, that's illegal. You can't do that, but that's what happens in some areas of the state of California. People don't pay you, and you have a hard time paying employees. Also, there's 11.75% that I tacked on to the lost wages, and that's how I got $2,860. I based $2,860 based on paying the employee $16 an hour, and again, I throw out the high end over there so that you're not unprepared if it's a little bit higher amount. So I put $16 an hour, and then I times it by 160 hours. That amount that I got from that, I times it by 11.75% for payroll taxes. Now, payroll taxes is going to vary, and these taxes are Medicare, Social Security tax, California unemployment tax, and there's some other taxes in there that you're going to be responsible for. You have to deduct that from your employee. So the total amount, $2,860, you want to have prepared for lost wages. And I actually recommend that you have 2 months of a payment, just in case, 2 months of payment to your employee for 2 months of salary, just in case you're still having problems gathering payment from your client. And that would put us at $5,720, which is tacked on to the $26,552. Okay, uniforms, I just put $500, and that would cover one employee. Keep in mind that you must provide equipment and the uniforms to your employee. Okay, that's your expense. That's not the employee's expense. Okay, so that's up to you. You have to pay for that. Okay. Now, let's talk about some other things. You have monthly expenses. Okay, again, $3,000 rent. Depending on where you're at, If you're in Los Angeles, San Francisco, it's going to cost a lot more. If you're maybe in a high desert or a desert community, it might be a lot cheaper than that. But that's just a number that we can play with depending on where you're at. But remember, you have to be prepared just in case your client doesn't pay you and you can't make that monthly payment for a rent. You need a place, okay? That's why I think it's also important to have or start off with your home office just in case something like this happens. Utilities average about $400. This can include water, electricity, internet. It might be a little bit more, but that's okay. We just need to put a decent number, a reasonable number over there. Cell phone bill, $200. Maybe you want to use your personal one. Maybe you want to issue a cell phone to one of your private security officers out there so you can communicate with this person. Or maybe have some type of arrangement where they use their own cell phone. Okay, but if you want to communicate with somebody, expect that if that person doesn't have a cell phone, that you're going to have to find some other way of communicating. Might as well just get them a cell phone just for work purposes. $300 for self-payroll service. Okay, you might need to have some type of payroll software. You could use Intuit, Intuit. They have a pretty good payroll system as well. Or maybe you want to go to a bookkeeping service that they could do the payroll for you. If it's just yourself, it's a lot easier. If you have one employee, it's kind of a pain a little bit. But you have 10 employees, 20 employees, you're going to probably want to have your own a payroll service to help you out. Okay, some of you want to have a corporation. Okay, with a private patrol operator company. As of 2020, you cannot have a corporation. I'm sorry, you can't have an LLC. You can have a corporation if you want, and the expense is going to vary. So more or less, it's going to be about $500 for state filing fees. If you want to use Zoom.com to help you file, I did it by myself in the beginning stages, and I made a mistake on the articles of incorporation. A month later, they sent me the corrections, and then I fixed it. But I did it on my own for about $100 to $200. But it's just so much easier if you have a company that helps you incorporate, like LegalZoom. You might want to use Zoom, ZOOM.com. You might want to use them to help you start up your corporation and file those articles of incorporation appropriately. Every single year after the first year, you are going to have to pay a minimum of about $800 a year for your corporation. If you have a corporation, okay, that's your responsibility. So you have to figure in that into your budget. Okay, and we pretty much covered all the cost. Something else I want to add, that on the lost wages, on the payroll tax, there is a cutoff after, in the state of California, after you hit about $450 of the first $7,000 of an employee's salary, you don't have to keep paying payroll tax of such a high bracket. So some of this $5,720 can definitely go away. Some of this $2,860 can go away. But you always want to budget on the higher end, just in case some type of emergency happens. You have that extra cushion. So in summary, $18,442 you can get away with. This is more or less average on what it would cost most people to start off with that want to have a $3,000 a month office. $26,552 is ideal, and again, it just costs that much because of the office space, and I am totaling 2 months of pay for your employee. These numbers are great to have with you, just in case you need to get a loan, you need to borrow some money. I don't recommend. I'm totally against borrowing from other people's money. I like to have everything paid off, but you might have a different idea on this, and you're going to have to justify your expenses if you want to get some type of small business loan or some type of other business loan. You're going to have to justify all your numbers, and this is a perfect way of explaining what those numbers are.